All right, we'll go ahead and get started. This is our regular session, November 15th, 6 p.m. I'll call the meeting to order. And Mr. Weston, will you do a roll call for us, please?
Councilor Thompson?
Here.
Councilor Moore?
Here.
Councilor Walton?
Here.
Councilor Petrie?
Here.
Councilor Manella?
Here.
Councilor Foley? Mayor Bender?
Here. All right, thank you. And it looks like we have several meeting minutes to approve this evening. Has everyone had a chance to read the minutes? Any questions or discussion? If none, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve minutes from the May 17th, June 14th, 2023.
Do I have a second? Second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any abstentions? Opposing? No? All right. Motion carries.
Point of order, that was only two, that was only, June 14th and June 20th.
I heard her say May 17th.
Oh, I heard her say May 17th as well.
Yeah.
All three.
Okay, sorry.
But just to verify, the motion was for all 3 minutes, and all minutes were approved. All right. So it looks like we are not having our special presentation tonight. Is that true? So at this time, we will open it up to public forum, and the council will be happy to receive. I'll speak slower just to give Councilor Tully just a second to come to the table.
Sorry, I'm running late.
No problem. The traffic was bad. So at this time, the council will be happy to receive your comments pertaining to items on the agenda, with the exception of public hearings for which testimony will be received and conducted in the proper form and manner at the time of the hearing, including questions, suggestions, complaints, and items for the future. Each person's time will be limited to 3 minutes. We have quite a full gallery here. Ronnie, do we have those on? Okay. All right. So we will just do this in order. Are these all individuals in the room? Do we have any public comments online? All right. For those listening online.
I didn't get my name on the list.
Okay. For anyone listening online, if you would like to make a public comment, please indicate to Mr. Smith. We will start a list going. Otherwise, we would just have public comment in the gallery this evening, in person. All right, since we have quite a long list of individuals who would like to speak, I would like to remind everyone that this is not a dialogue, right? As much as we want to interact and respond and speak with you, this is just not the forum to do that in. So really, the process is you come up, you have 3 minutes to give us your statement. We take your statement, we listen, we thank you, and that's it. So we don't mean to be rude by not responding or engaging with you. It's just, it's not the right time. So that's what public comment is for you to simply provide us comments, and we will listen. All right, and so, yeah, what we will do is, will you be the timekeeper?
Yeah, I'll keep time.
So, Councilor Manella's here. We'll keep time. When you have about 30 seconds to go, he will raise your hand. When you come to the end of your 3 minutes,
Thank you.
we will signal and let you know, and we would kindly ask you to quickly wrap it up at 3 minutes. All right? Okay, first up is Randall Olson. Come up to the podium, please. State your name, state your address, and you can address the council.
Thank you for this opportunity to express my opinions. My name is Randall Olson. I live at 13509 Southwest King Lear Way in Edgewater. 3 minutes?
Yeah, no, I'll start. When you start, I'll go.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Good evening, Mayor Bender and City Councilors. Last City Council meeting, I thank you all for your time and hard work you put into managing the city and planning for its future. I want to repeat that tonight. All good people volunteering to serve the city and doing the best job you can. I want to assure you that the recall is nothing personal. It's simply that we have repeatedly voiced our opposition to the Fisher Road extension as planned, and feel the recall is our only remaining option. Now, to summarize what happened regarding King City's revocation of the recall petitions, on September 20th, the city recorder approved the petitions. We then had just 90 days to collect and submit enough signatures. On October 5th, the city recorder sent a letter revoking the petitions due to alleged unspecified false statements and materials. We ceased gathering signatures at that time. Secretary of State's Election Division issued a letter of instruction for King City to promptly rescind the revocation. When King City did not comply, the Secretary of State filed a complaint in Washington County Circuit Court. October 27th, the hearing was held, and the court quickly agreed with the Secretary of State's office, ordering the city recorder to rescind the revocation letter. After losing almost 3 weeks' time, we are again gathering signatures for the recall. Having sought legal counsel to perform a thorough review of all recall materials, and after listening to Judge Sims' comments in court, I'm confident that there are no false or misleading statements. Constitutional right is the state of Oregon to recall public officials. At the last city council meeting, the mayor stated the recall effort was cowardly. Mayor Fender, there are hundreds of King City residents involved in this recall, and I hope you have an opportunity to apologize or clarify your inappropriate outburst. Mayor and some councilors expressed surprise and confusion regarding the recall effort because 4 city councilors ran unopposed in the election last November. The council has only recently approved the master grant and TSP. Last November, we were still hopeful and even optimistic that the city council would represent the overwhelming public opinion from their constituents. Sadly, they did not, hence the recall. Fisher Road extension, if planned, is now presented as the best and only option. I believe there is a better, simple, and viable solution. Move the Collector Road north to a location that discourages cut-through traffic and avoids sensitive environmental areas. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. All right, up next is Carl Swanson. Mr. Swanson, will you remove your hat? Thank you.
October 4th.
Oh, I'm sorry. Place your name and your address on the record, and then we'll start your time.
My name is Carl Swanson. My address is 12085 Southwest King City, Oregon.
Okay, thank you.
The October 4 King City Council hearing, Mayor Fender read a statement regarding the Oregon Governmental Ethics Commission, by stating that she leads with integrity and transparency. Later in the statement, she asked the issue be placed on the next, that all will be provided and updated at the next meeting. Raised the courts of transparency. Minutes of the hearing was then dedicated to the ethics complaint. The opinion, Mayor's opinion, is for illegitimate purposes. Mayor Fender stated that she would keep the community apprised of developments through council meetings until the matter was fully resolved, and committed to having it as an agenda item at each. On October 6th, the 4 council members that are subjects of the ethics investigation attended the OGC executive session. The Ethics Commission voted unanimously to continue investigation in each of the 4 cases. The agenda for the October 18 council meeting was sent out on the 12th. The OGC finding that 4 council members may have violated Oregon government ethics law was not included as an agenda item. The OGC sent out a notification letter dated October 9th that they had voted on October 6th to continue the investigation of possible violations of Oregon governmental ethics law. Preliminary reports for each of the 4 councilors were included. In each case, the OGC review determined there appears to be a substantial objective basis to believe that all 4 council members under review may have violated conflict of interest provisions of Oregon government ethics law. On October 18, King City Council's meeting started with a discussion of the agenda. Although they don't state what item 3 was, it is evident they're discussing the OGC investigation. At that meeting, Councilor Paulson said, "I don't believe there is any update." Mike Weston said, "I don't think we have an update on that, really, other than what we talked about on October 4. Councilor Paulson said, "Correct." To summarize the agenda, Council appeared to discuss OGC as an agenda item and then decided not to. Out of transparency, the OGC matter was to be on the agenda. Mayor Fender later in the October 18 meeting acknowledged receiving the OGC findings letter. All 4 of the councilors attended the OGC meeting, finding council adoption of the transportation system plan may have violated conflict of interest provisions of Oregon ethics law. Once the October 18 discussion of agenda items was completed, The council moved to the public forum where I spoke, objecting to the fact that the OGC matter had been left off the agenda and that Councilor Paulson and Mike Weston both misled as there was new information. Once the public forum concluded, Mayor Fender decided to make a motion to include the OGC update as new business. She then acknowledges that she had asked at the previous meeting to include it as a standing agenda item until the ethics investigation was complete. Once the OGC new agenda item began, the council spends 11 minutes on the subject, which did not include the findings of the OGC preliminary investigation, instead merely rehashing the opinions of the mayor. The October 18 council meeting failed miserably to be transparent since it failed to provide recent findings and facts from the OGC, instead just more opinions as cover and political spin from the mayor. The fact is that council's adoption of the Transportation System Plan may have violated conflict of interest provisions of Oregon ethics law. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Dan Brenner. Go ahead, come up, state your name and address for the record.
My name's Dan Brenner. I live at 14120 Southwest River Lane, Tigard. Good evening. My name is Gary Woods. I'm reading it for Mr. Woods.
And I appreciate it. Has that been clarified ahead of time? Okay. So can you, for the record, just reconfirm that you're reading on behalf of another resident?
I sure will.
And provide his address?
I sure will.
And then we'll start your time over so you don't need it.
Sure will.
Thank you.
My name's Dan Brenner. I live at 14120 Southwest River Lane in Tigard.
Yep.
I'm speaking for Mr. Gary Woods, who lives at 13538 Southwest Fisher Road. Good evening. Right now I'm on an airplane returning from Africa, where I've been helping on various projects for the past 2 months. I'm sure that the councilors know me. Since I'm not able to be present, I asked my friend to read my statement. It has been a very disappointing journey to work with you. Councilor Shauna Thompson is the only councilor that has taken seriously the feedback of the community. The whole master plan process has been aiming at doing just what you have done. I have been part of the process. I have written emails, had personal meetings, engaged with neighbors, started a petition, orchestrated the original yard signs, and been summarily dismissed. We were told that this master plan would not affect our properties or property values. I'm glad that Councilor Thompson spoke reality into the situation, though the rest of you didn't listen. I was diagnosed with a degenerative joint problem in my foot and began having a lot of problems going up and down our stairs. Our children were concerned that I would fall and suggested that we sell and find a single-story house. We love our house and our neighbors. Reluctantly, we decided to sell. We spent $20,000 painting the inside of the house and other upgrades and listed the house. We got a buyer immediately who loved the house and offered over list price so that we would take it off the market. Then the letter from King City arrived that the council had approved the master plan. So I immediately contacted our real estate agent and sent her a copy of the letter. She forwarded the letter to the buyer's agent, who in turn gave the letter to the buyers. Buyers went to the website and studied the plan, and realizing the potential problems for them, they withdrew their offer. The reason they wrote down for the withdrawal was the Kingston Terrace master plan. Our realtor began warning other agents about the master plan and the potential for the agents to be sued if they did not disclose the master plan now that it has been approved. We relisted our house, but we had no more interest in our house, no showings. We unlisted the house and will wait to sell it until after the recall is complete. It seems that before this gets any messier, that the councilors should listen to those who voted them into their positions. I just wish that you guys could also speak only for 3 minutes.
And it looks like Rachel, Ager.
My name is Rachel Ager. I live at 14020 Southwest River Lane, Tigard. So at the last city council meeting, 10 minutes was spent on the topic of recall. Since the council has unlimited time and freedom to express themselves, I will take my 3 minutes to address some of these comments. The mayor takes issue with the fact that 4 of you ran uncontested last November and doesn't seem to connect the events and decisions of the past year with the recall today. Councillor Moore states she's confused and has cognitive dissonance on the matter. Councillor Paulson also has disconnect between last November and this November. You were given the opportunity to represent your constituency, and the decisions you made didn't begin until June. The cost of a recall election is mentioned as a concern. 13 recalls have been filed in Oregon this year. Recalls are unfortunate, but a necessary part of the democratic process. Regarding costs, King City did not have the authority to revoke the recall petition. The Secretary of State sent the city a letter recommending the revocation to be rescinded, but the city refused. I would like to know how much the city has spent on staff time and attorney fees to challenge the Secretary of State. There has been a commitment to transparency, so I'm requesting that information be shared with the citizens of this city. The mayor uses a number of descriptors to convey her feelings. Personal attack, affront, shocking, and cowardly are words used to describe the recall. Illegitimate, intimidate, harass, embarrass, smear, and disreputable are used by the mayor to describe the ethics complaint. I'm sorry if you find these actions upsetting, but I find these comments unbecoming of a mayor to describe the action taken by a community that are permissible in an attempt to defend itself. Mike Weston is concerned with the false and misleading information. He says that a Fisher alignment change would cost the city hundreds of thousands, if not $1 million, to scrap the plan and restart. The mayor adds that the grant funds would go out the window. I don't believe these are true statements, but instead they are gross over-exaggerations. Councillor Paulson is dumbfounded by the lack of participation. Your community has lost faith in all of you. Have you been at the community meetings? Did you read any of the testimony? What are people saying? Councillor Paulson doesn't understand why people aren't stepping up to volunteer for boards and commissions. After all, you dismissed one commissioner for fear of what he would say, one resigned because of the Fisher proposal, and another didn't want to be part of what was going on anymore. Your leadership is what is not attracting or promoting volunteerism. The recall, however, is sparking interest in serving, and a leadership change will hopefully restore space of representation.
Thank you. Up next is Greg Russell.
My name is Greg Russell. I'm at 14100 Southwest River Lane in Tigard. And I, too, appreciate your volunteering for the City Council and the hours you put into all these meetings. It's apparent, however, that you have not been responsive to the people you're supposed to represent. There are many outside organizations and other experts who have been giving opposing viewpoints and presented research that counters the consultants' data. You gave us opportunities to speak for our concerns, but there's been no meaningful follow-through. Surely at some point it would have been appropriate for you to have responded by saying, you bring up some valid points and we need to look into it further. I worked in county and state governments for over 20 years and have never witnessed the confusion and the misrepresentation I observed in King City's development of the master and the transportation plans. Your dismissal of a King City planner, the resignation of another under protest of your decisions, and the approval of a new King City planner are examples of this disarray. The SAC and TAC committee feedback was an exercise in participation with no ability to have any real impact on decisions. We are not against development, we support intelligent plan development. I don't know how this process is going to play out in the next few years, but I do know that this whole ordeal between yourselves and the so-called opposition was preventable, as well as a waste of time, energy, and resources. There are many complex issues that need to be addressed, Let's work together and come up with solutions we can all live with. Are you ready to make that commitment? Thank you.
Mike Meyer?
So I'm gonna tag team this. I don't have enough time to get through it, so Dave Robinson's gonna fill in after me. Mike Meyer, 16950 Southwest Meyer Lane, Tigard. I was contacted by John O'Neill of the Metropolitan Land Group in August to discuss the master plan, my concerns, and the LUBA appeal. We met a few days later along with Fred Gass from New Home Company. We shared information and discussed my concerns along with those of the community. They seemed sympathetic and understanding of my position. I was contacted again in September by John O'Neill requesting another meeting. We met again along with Fred Gass in late September. I was presented with 3 maps showing alternative routing. I liked what I saw since it addressed several of the issues I had advocated for over the past couple of years. All 3 options reduced the number of east-west roads crossing 147th from 3 to 2. All 3 options move the roads north toward planned higher density development away from the river, reducing ravine crossings and lessening the impact on the natural environment, all desired outcomes. Personally, my property was avoided in 2 options and had minimal impact in the 3rd case. I was told Mike Weston had approved all 3 options. I remembered from our second meeting there was one option they said Mike Weston was not fond of. Earlier this month, I asked John O'Neill to clarify for me that 3rd option, whether or not it had been approved. John O'Neill responded to a text message, I think Weston was okay with the northern alignment we proposed. Unfortunately, in all 3 cases, once the southern road choice crosses the west property line of the Bankstons, the road swings south and resumes course across the nature preserve, and then as planned, creating a direct connection from 99W to Roy Rogers Road. I was given the opportunity to choose an alignment in exchange for dropping the LUBA appeal. Although personally preferable than the adopted plan, I couldn't accept a deal to the detriment of my community, and I turned it down. I appreciated them meeting with me, developing alternatives with their design team, and getting the approval from Mike Weston. I questioned the approval since we as a community had been looking for a compromise on the number of roads and their alignment. John and Fred told me they have influence with the city. I find it very disappointing we as citizens apparently don't have that kind of influence. What they were presenting was a big step in the right direction. Mike Weston recently stated, doing a recall doesn't stop Fisher Road. That would cost the city hundreds of thousands, if not another $1 million, to scrap everything we've done and restart. And the city doesn't have the revenue or the funds to do that. And I don't believe that anyone would give us grant funds, again, to review what they just paid us to finish. Mayor Fender then says all the grant funding that took years to obtain would be just out the window and all the new plans would be born out of the pockets of all of us. These statements are bewildering in light of the fairly substantial modification to the alignment brokered by Metropolitan Land Group and New Home in a short amount of time and with assumed minimal expense. I find these comments to be outrageous. To suggest that the entire plan would need to be scrapped for a realignment the community is seeking is absurd. At the June 14th Council TSP deliberation hearing, Peter Watts laid out a process for choosing another alternative that would involve working with Metro, noticing the community, and having another meeting, a far cry from scrapping it all. At the joint workshop on July 14th, 21, Mike Weston makes the following statement. Plans are plans, and they're fluid, and they change. And as soon as the developer comes in with their plan, hopefully you can hang on to something, onto some aspect of that, of what you came up with. I'm almost done. Just 4 months ago, when voting, the council had the option to amend the plan. Are the mayor and city manager being honest that a vote to amend would have required the plan to be scrapped and to restart? I believe this to be a false statement. The developer was able to make a significant alignment change and gain approval from the city manager in less than a month. Just another 1,900 feet of modifications to reach 137th, and the community is satisfied. Thank you.
I'm not hearing it, so I think we need it. Dave Robinson, please.
Always.
Okay, Amanda Parkner. Your name and your record.
Amanda Karkner, 16625 Southwest 147.
Now it's going.
I can hear it. commissioner resigned on March 10th. He didn't want to be associated with Fisher Road Extension. Another was dismissed on March 15th. From the municipal code, a member of this commission may be removed by the appointing authority after a hearing for misconduct or non-performance of duty. You established neither. At the March 15th council meeting, there is a discussion about setting up a mechanism of how to go through the process for planning commission vacancies. Weston says give him a couple weeks to develop a process. He suggests a work session, roundtable style for interviewing, and then having a council meeting for an appointment. The mayor states we need consistency across all candidates, make sure that they're treated equally with the same questions, and we will have a discussion at the next council meeting. That discussion did not take place, and 8 months later, that process has still not been established. Before this discussion, there was a discussion to revamp the interview process after the Gauthier-Ron Johnson debacle, but no action was taken. 2 months later, on May 16th, planning commission vacancies were noticed by sending only 123 emails and posting in the Oregonian and Times. Many in the area did not receive this notification that typically do. 2 additional vacancies resulted from June 1st term expirations that no one seemed to be paying attention to. This left only 3 planning commissioners. The June 28th Planning Commission Community Development Code hearing only had 3 commissioners left. Mr. Weston has attempted to explain at meetings how 3 constitutes a quorum. From your municipal code, a quorum, 4 members of the commission shall constitute a quorum for the conduct of business by the commission. A vote of the majority of the quorum shall be necessary for action by the commission or on any matter before it. Also from your municipal code, the commission shall consist of 7 voting members to be appointed by the mayor with the consent and approval of the city council. Shall is an imperative command, usually indicating that certain actions are mandatory and not permissive. From the DOJ Appendix K, Parliamentary Procedure, Quorums and Voting, it says the fact that 1 or more vacancies exist on a board, commission, or council has no bearing on the quorum requirements. Since the law establishes the number of members required for a quorum, the fact that the position is unfilled does not alter this requirement. Statutes, not parliamentary procedure, specify quorums and voting requirements. The King City Planning Commission has conducted at least 1 hearing in violation of the King City Municipal Code and possibly in violation of the State of Oregon quorum rules. At the July 19th council meeting, 2 planning commission's appointments were on the agenda. Mayor Fender is on Zoom and has to run for a bridal shower she's late for. She states I would recuse myself for the vote anyway this evening regarding the vote for planning commission, so my attendance going forward tonight is not needed. What I hear Mayor Fender saying is that if she was able to hang around for the vote, she would be recusing herself. She does not say why she'd be recusing herself. Also, the mayor appoints the planning commission vacancies, so how are they able to appoint them without the mayor? These questions were emailed to the mayor with no response. From your municipal code, vacancies on the commission shall be filled by appointment by the mayor with the consent and approval of the council. With this appointment, there is limited notification, no reminder, no interview, no explanation for the recusal, and the appointment was not made by the mayor as required by the municipal code. The city just went through the very important planning process with minimal, and in one case less than minimal, complement of commissioners. There was no urgency for replacements or follow-through with establishing a consistent process for appointments. This is one example of poor leadership, lack of oversight, and mismanagement by the city council.
All right, Nicole Meyer.
Nicole Meyer, 16925 Southwest Meyer Lane. At the last 2 council meetings on 10/4 and 10/18, over 30 minutes were spent by the council discussing the OGEC investigation. I'm not going to speak on the merits of the complaint since there are OGEC investigators assigned to the case that will make that determination, but I will address some of the commitments, comments, and allegations made by the mayor during these meetings. The mayor made a comment about leading with transparency and integrity. A commitment to transparency was made at the first meeting, but it seems they fell short of being transparent at the second meeting. OGEC wasn't on the agenda as promised. It was not presented as new items for the agenda, and it wasn't until comments were made during the public forum period that it was added to the agenda by motion of the mayor. It seems there were quite a few developments between the 2 meetings, and an attempt not to address them was intentional. I read the OGEC complaint and then obtained a copy of the preliminary reviews. The mayor characterized the complaint as being filed for illegitimate purposes as a way to intimidate, harass, embarrass, smear, and to make them look disreputable. The facts stated in the complaint seem reasoned, but again, that's a determination for the OGEC. When discussing the OGEC complaint, the mayor also talks about the abuse, harassment, hatred, vitriol, disgusting things written about them on Nextdoor. I have not seen anything on Nextdoor or any other social media platforms regarding the OGEC complaint, investigation, or even the recall. Is the mayor trying to connect some previous discussions to this complaint? Because if she is, I'm not aware of any connection. This type of attempt to associate outliers on social media to community members with a differing viewpoint has been used before. I question a few other comments made by the mayor at these meetings. I wonder if the mayor is stating opinion or fact. She says Edgewater has unilaterally raised the property values of their entire city. Housing prices are up everywhere, economy-driven, but I'd like to know if she can support that claim. She also said claims were made in the past that an apartment complex is going to bring crime, insinuating that it's not. I'm not sure what complex she is referring to. If it's the one on Fisher Road across from Space Age, I'm aware of a comment Chief Hapola made. During a discussion about annexation, a question was asked about annexing the area to include the apartment complex. Chief Hapola commented, "Be careful what you wish for because they would have to dedicate one policeman to the entire apartment complex alone." That comment seems to refute the mayor's claim. At the end of the 4 reviews, the OGEC has stated the following: based on the information available in this preliminary review, there appears to be substantial objective basis to believe that they may have violated the conflict of interest provisions in the Oregon Government Ethics Law. The OGEC should move to investigate whether they have violated ORS 244.120 subsection 2. Even though the mayor says leave with transparency, this OGEC statement that there appears to be a substantial objective basis to believe that they may have violated the conflict of interest provisions has not been stated at either of the last 2 council meetings. Ask yourselves why. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Chancellor, Watson.
Decline.
Okay. Debbie Walks.
No.
Debbie Walk, 14120 Southwest River Lane. You guys know the zip code. My concerns. I think I've written something in the last 5 minutes. King City has been entrusted by Washington County and Metro to oversee the protection and development of 500 acres, give or take. A number of people through the development area have had and have large land holdings. Charlene Bankston was one of those landowners. Mrs. Bankston took her time, effort, and money to put environmental protections in place for a small, unbuildable portion of her overall property long before most of you became residents of King City. I haven't heard of any of the other property restrictions. That she put into place on the rest of the acreage. I haven't heard of any other local landowners donating land to this environmentally sensitive area. It was a wonderful and it was a thoughtful gift to the Tualatin. Since 2018, you've been told no. No by the Columbia Land Trust, no by the lawyers, no by the environmental protection groups, and no by the people who live here. You have copies of the contract in your master plan. It says no building, no roads, no utilities. You squandered our time, our money, and our emotions all over such a small parcel of ground. It's not yours to take. Leave the land trust, the conservation easement, and whatever you choose to call it, just leave it alone. That's it. Thank you.
Gary Mitchell.
Kick yourself.
My name is Gary Mitchell. I live at 13350 Southwest King Lear Way. Councilors, my comments tonight are about the recall and the council leadership and oversight. Much of what I'm about to say has been covered already by others, but I'll go ahead and cover it. Back at the March 15th, 23 council meeting, there was a discussion about establishing a procedure for open positions to be announced regarding the Planning Commission, and that a standard questionnaire be given to applicants to the council to assess qualifications of each applicant. The city manager was to draft a standard procedure to be put on the agenda for the next council meeting. Since that March 15th meeting, it doesn't appear to me that any procedure has been established or even discussed at a council meeting. Why not? What happened to following up on this? The current process for appointments still appears to be somewhat arbitrary and inconsistent. This issue surfaced again at the July 19th council meeting. At that meeting, the mayor recommended 2 appointees for the Planning Commission. It was not apparent that the candidates answered a set of standard questions for the council to review and use to interview the candidates. It was not disclosed and was unclear where when, and how the two candidates were recruited. Mayor Fender couldn't stay for that meeting and the council vote and said that she would have recused herself anyway, but she did not state the reason. If recusing is due to a conflict of interest, elected officials must publicly announce the nature of the conflict of interest. It was unclear to the public and to the other councilors if the reason is due to a conflict of interest or was somehow due to involvement in recruiting the candidates. I'm not suggesting anything nefarious here. It's just important that the council vote to approve the candidates knowing what the reason for recusal was. Additionally, regarding council leadership and oversight, the municipal code requires 7 members on the planning commission. A resignation and for other reasons left the planning commission with only 3 members, yet a hearing was conducted on June 28th. And that was an important hearing on the development code and only had 3 commissioners. Doesn't the city code require a quorum of 4? Was that hearing legally conducted? There are still 2 vacancies on the commission. Have you taken action to fill those vacancies? I encourage you, the city council, to provide leadership and oversight to ensure that city business is properly conducted. Thank you.
All right, is it Leanne Harvey? No? Okay. Is there anyone else who is not on the list who would like to speak?
I'm not on the list and I'd like to speak.
Okay, if you can hand your information, or please write your information down there.
Okay.
And then hand me the note. And are these individuals online who would like to speak?
You have people in front of me, that's
You can go ahead since you're in here, so just write your name down and then come to the podium and you can put your name and address on the record and give your statement.
Good evening. My name is Melanie Sagebear, 12369 Southwest King George Drive. I am a member of the Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde. I'm an elder in my tribe. We don't have many. We have approximately 5,837 people. The damage to the preserve of the Bankston Preserve is going to cause is extensive. I went down and took pictures. We have bobcat dens. We have several little small mammals that other larger animals feed on. We have saplings that are this big. In Oregon, a sapling is precious. In my tribe, a sapling is life. I don't understand who said Grand Ronde tribe or the Afuet, Tualatin River people, Kalapuya, said this was okay. I've not been able to find any evidence that any of my tribal council or tribal members, our cultural center, or our resource center can prove that anything from this council came through my tribe. So I personally would like that addressed. Thank you for your time.
All right, we will move on to comments from members who are attending by Zoom. So up first, we will have Fred Letcher. Apologies if I can't read the handwriting very well. Sorry, Ron.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can hear you, yes. Please go ahead and state your name. If you see us while you're talking, Councilor Manelis will raise his hand up into the air when you have 30 seconds left. But please state your name, your address, and you will have 3 minutes.
All right, thank you. My name is Fred Leuchter, 12980 Southwest Carmel Street in King City. I lived here for about 14 years. Free speech allows individuals to express their opinions and ideas without fear of censorship or persecution. The removal of free speech from society can have dangerous consequences. It can lead to the suppression of dissenting opinions and ideas, which can stifle innovation and progress. Free speech plays a crucial role in preventing a small interest group from dominating over society's best interest. It allows individuals to voice their concerns and opinions, which can help to prevent the concentration of power in the hands of a few. Free speech also promotes transparency and accountability, which are essential for ensuring that those in power act in the best interests of society as a whole. With that being said, I'd like to draw everybody's attention to some political prisoners in America that have been incarcerated for passing out political literature. The same way that you get a flyer delivered around election time, to your doorstep, that's what these people were doing. In West Palm Beach, John Minadeo, Minadeo, was arrested and sentenced to 30 days in jail on November 1st for attempted littering charges while passing out political literature. He faces up to an additional year for a different littering charge as well. Jail time for free speech. This is exactly what happened during the Bolsheviks' takeover of Russia, and is still happening today in communist China. In Douglasville, Georgia, on November 3rd, 2 people, a husband and a wife, their house was raided. Over 8 deputies were sent to gather them for what they call littering of political flyers. These 2 were charged, Philip and Hillary Jacobs, were then charged with 302 counts of littering each, and are facing $650,000 in fines. So these people have these flyers. They're on gtvflyers.com, gtvflyers.com, and groups like the ADL, which is a very select group of people, have gone around and basically convinced city councils to go ahead and put ordinances against, like in Poway, they call it hate litter. If you go around and you pass out a piece of paper with a list of names on it that say this group of people controls 96% of the media, let's say, which is one of them, then you can be charged with a hate crime. So I don't know, the American Revolution was started. Imagine if somebody told Thomas Paine that he couldn't pass out literature. Where would we be today? So I see us as being dominated by one small group of people that make up 2% of the population, but are somehow 80% of Joe Biden's cabinet. So I would like to bring this before the council and before the town for people to take a look at what's really going on. You could also check out watcheuropa.com. And that's all I had to say. Thank you for my time.
Thank you. All right, up next is going to be Sandeem Albeck. Apologies if I don't get your name correct. Go ahead, and when you have been given the microphone, please state your name for the record, and you will have 3 minutes.
All right. My name is Sandeem Albeck. I live on 16559 Southwest 128th Ave here in King City. Am I good to go?
You are.
Yes, perfect. Thank you. I would like to address a matter of local concern. There have been some instances of babies contracting and even dying of preventable diseases, and I think we as a community can do our part to protect the most vulnerable among us. These children have caught herpes simplex A1, and some have died from it. Imagine little babies, little innocent, wiggly bundles of joy, infected for life by a virus which can cause death with their weak little new immune systems or even cancer in later life. There's no cure for herpes. These little children will all suffer every day of their life, and they'll be able to pass it on to their wives and their children if they have children. This is barbaric, and we can say no more of it. As a community, these baby boys get this disease during the practice of metsitsa bepe, or oral suction committed during circumcision. And let me be clear, there is no place for a man to put his mouth on a baby's genitals, none. Yet, there's a certain group, the Jewish group in the synagogue, they do it all the time. They mutilate these children and they put their mouths.
All right. We're done, sir. No, we're done.
Cut 'em
Please cut the microphone. And while we certainly appreciate free speech, we are going far afield on that comment, and we are not going to tolerate anti-Semitism. All right, we are going to move on to Richard Butler. All right, Mr. Butler, if you say your name and address for the record, please. Richard Butler. Is he on, Ronnie, or? He's on. Okay. All right, Mr. Butler, if you have about 10 more seconds. If you can place yourself off mute and give us your name and address. All right, we're going to move on. Don Mobley.
Okay, can you hear me?
We can hear you. Please state your name and your address for the record.
All right, I'm Don Mobley. Don Mobley, address is 17030 Southwest 137th, Rivermead. And I just wanted to go on the record in support of the recall. I definitely have just been very disappointed in how King City has handled this entire expansion process. And that's really all I needed to say. Just wanted to be on the record for being in support of the recall. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else on Zoom or last call for here in the room to give public statements at this time? All right, go ahead and please.
Southeast 231st Street, Gabriel Guy, can you hear me?
Can you repeat your address, please? Please go ahead and repeat your name and your address for the record, please.
Southeast 231st Street, Maple Valley. Gabriel Guy.
And what city and state?
Happy Valley.
Excuse me?
Happy Valley? You heard it? Okay. All right, we're having a hard time hearing you. That's why. So we were clarifying for your address for the record, but it sounds like we have it now. So I'll go ahead and put the microphone back and you can begin.
Okay, so you can hear me?
Okay, I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. We heard Maple Valley. Please restate the city and the state that you live in.
Seattle, Washington.
All right. Thank you.
Before.
So can you hear me?
Yeah, I think they are too.
All right. Which agenda item are you going to speak to tonight?
I just want to speak on public comment.
No, sir. We've had several individuals this evening who have made inappropriate statements to the council tonight. So if you have an item that you would like to address regarding what's on the agenda, a future agenda item, or a complaint that pertains to this municipality, we're welcome to hear your comments. If you're making general statements about the state of affairs of the world, that's an inappropriate use of our time.
Yeah, no problem. I just want to say fuck niggers.
Wow. All right. So we're going
Fuck niggers,
we're
use
done.
it on
Okay.
11. Fuck niggers.
Repeat your Ronnie. Cut his mic, please.
Jeez.
All right. All right. So first of all, I would like to take this opportunity to apologize to those individuals in the room and listening on the phone or on Zoom and any recording in the future. Right? We do not condone any hate speech, and these disruptions are very unfortunate. So it's a balance letting people address us. However, This is quite traumatizing. So we are going to go ahead and,
You can't be a Lars Larson and vet your calls before they come in.
I wish.
Unfortunately, no.
all right, so.
No, they have to be open public comments, yeah.
All right, so let's collect ourselves, we'll get back, to the agenda item. Is there anyone else, I think at this time, we're not going to allow for any further public comments, from Zoom, unfortunately. However, if there's anyone that wanted to make legitimate statements, who has not gotten an opportunity, we encourage you to write your comments in and send them to Ronnie or to Mike, and we'd be happy to read them at the next, council meeting. If there's anyone else in the room that would like to make a statement, go ahead and come up.
Mayor Fender, I have one more statement to make, if you have time.
Okay.
Okay.
You're gonna have to put your name and your address back on the record.
Got it. Melanie Stage Bear, 12369 Southwest King George Drive, King City, Oregon. I've been here since 2010, moved here to take care of my aging father, since passed in 19, 82-year-old mother who now serves on the King City Board as well as I do. I'm under recall. I know what it's about. Okay? I know what it feels like. Point, not doing your job. You're not doing your duty to the community. Time to step down. I appreciate the volunteerism because it is not easy. But the community's talking. And as a King City Board officer, if I don't listen, I'm wrong. If we don't listen, we're wrong. I got.
Okay, thank you. All right. Anyone else who has not spoken?
Since I spoke before Gary Woods, may I say?
I think that's fair, yeah. Go ahead.
Still Dan Brenner. I still live at 14120 Southwest River Lane.
Thank you. All right.
Recent council meetings, you pointed out that there hasn't been much attendance by the public. One doesn't have to wonder why, just pay attention to things that city personnel have said here and in other formats. On March 22nd, 23, Commissioner Bellows said, I realize that 90% of community comments are against the Fisher Road extension, but I'm thinking of the future, so I move it. June 14th, 23, Councilor Moore said, I'm basing my decision on the hundreds and thousands of voices that we haven't heard by voting to approve this plan. Then on May 17th, Councilor Thompson was asking if the community comments were being taken into consideration when choosing the alternative. Mayor Fender said that she could answer the question. She said, that no, the community's desires or opinions were not one of the factors in coming to the decision choosing the alternative for Fisher Road. Process of public engagement, their opinions, available at every step. Tried to explain to me in an email by saying that you understood it to be criteria that the experts their analysis, and that you recalled saying that the experts did not use the public. Look back at the conversation. There was no mention of the experts. It became too frustrating to attend these meetings, speaking from our hearts, only to be shown that regardless of what we say, it doesn't matter. That's why.
All right. That will conclude our public comment portion of the agenda this evening, and we will move on to unfinished business. And the first item of unfinished business is the OGEC update. And so I would just say I haven't received any further communication. I haven't had any conversations in the last month. So I don't have a personal update to provide. I don't know if anyone else here has received any correspondence, or if, Mike, you've received anything, but...
that they're doing their investigation.
Right. They certainly haven't contacted us and interviewed us and what, so I don't know, I have no idea, I have no knowledge of what, is transpiring, however, we shall wait and continue. We will have this as an agenda item on the next, meeting, and we talked about that at the last, session, and so, any update that we'll get, we'll discuss at the next meeting. All right. So here is our time to speak to,
Next meeting, I'm sorry.
Okay, I'd appreciate to not have comments coming back, just because it's distracting and it's hard to follow along. So, all right, next on the agenda item is the recall discussion. And I think before we get started on this, I just want to make a general statement, certainly for those who are going to be watching later or joining us who aren't in the room. And that is just to say that none of us who are under recall want to use this time to publicly campaign, right? We're not trying to use this time as our personal, soapboxes and so forth. However, this recall has very drastic effects that can come down, and we need to understand the process. The City of King City residents need to understand the process, what to expect, and we just have a lot of questions. So the discussion around this recall, the purpose really is to clarify some of the steps and some of what to expect in the procedure, and it's not used to grandstand each of us, right? So with that, I think, Mike, let's throw it over to you. Why don't you give us a recap or kind of an update as to where we're at, and then I think what people really want to understand is an overview of a time frame. And so why don't you just kind of tell us what you'll know, and then I think everyone has questions that we'll ask.
So, we went to court, Secretary of State to determine whether there was a basis for factuality in the statements, and whether we were going to be held liable. The judge ordered that it's essentially opinion, and as opinion, it can go forward, and that the city's not the fact-finding body, and that we can't be held liable if we statements on. So that kind of cleared us as staff to the point where we felt like we didn't have any liability hanging over our head if there was a misstatement in the recall language. So at that point in time, we're pretty much out of it. Judge has ordered that essentially. So that was out. So the order that came down was that they would continue with their recall circulation, and so that's moving forward. The timeline on that, I think there's 2 different dates, if I'm not mistaken, December 12th and I think December 18th are the dates I think that are circulating. I think after that, if they're able to get all the signatures and get them verified by Washington County Elections, then it would go on to a special ballot. So that would be something that King ends up having to pay for. So that's creation of ballots, circulation of ballots. At this point in time, we have a couple estimates of our elections plan, but not until has to go to a special election within 90 days of verification of signature. So timeline-wise, if they in their signatures in December, then you're looking at a special election sometime in March.
30 days, isn't it?
35.
Yeah, 35 days.
And I apologize. I thought it was 90 days, so. Not the elections guy, so I do apologize. I thought it was 90 days.
So
maybe I'm mixing my dates. So what was it, 90 days for signatures?
Yes.
Okay, sorry.
So I think it would be, can you or Ronnie make a list of questions, and let's get verified answers by next council meeting. Let's put this back on the agenda as well for next council meeting, because I think we're going to have some additional questions here tonight. So, for example, will the residents of the city expect to receive a voter pamphlet, for example, or some type of electoral vote. And so,
I don't know about a pamphlet. I think you would get,
Just a ballot?
definitely a ballot. I don't know if they would do a pamphlet for a special election.
So Mike, the petition itself will be on a ballot, on a petition ballot, and
There is a pamphlet circulated for this particular item.
and so then for a pamphlet, so I think the question, I think we would like to, I personally would like to know, I think that residents have, should be told, right, kind of what to expect, and the time frame. Is there going to be a ballot, or not a ballot, excuse me, a pamphlet, and then I don't think we have an idea of what the cost is, so it would be nice to have an understanding of what that cost is. And other questions?
Are you asking Mike, or are you asking us?
Everyone?
Oh,
Mike or all of you?
What is the rough estimate? I mean, you can kind of look back.
I think it's probably around $10,000 to $15,000, I would imagine. At least, I mean, you figure a mailing notice. For us, a mailing notice usually costs $7,000 for us to do a flyer to all citizens. So here it's probably right in that realm, and then they probably have production and staff costs associated with it as well. So, I mean, estimate I'd say probably $15,000.
The Washington County would do it all and then send us an invoice. Is that how it works?
Washington County review signature.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They review and verify, validate.
Signature's been at this point?
I don't know.
Other questions?
And I'd like to make a statement. I have a question.
Sure.
This is a discussion.
Of course.
Personally, first of all, thank you all for coming and for, me personally, I just want to share that I am against this recall effort to recall my fellow counselors. I understand where you're coming from, and I support freedom of speech, but it is going to cost significant money, and it is going to disrupt the operations of city business. If the recall is successful, I'm calling myself up here, right? How am I going to have a quorum? How's anything going to get done? I mean, obviously, we're going to have to fill all of these seats. It's going to be a ginormous headache, just to be totally honest and speaking from my heart. That's going to be a lot of work personally for me, and I'm just going to be selfish about it for a second and say, that's a lot to put on me personally, and I'm not mad at you guys for doing this. I understand, but I don't really want to be put in that situation. So I'm just speaking as Shauna, that I am against this for many reasons. All of these people are giving, so much of their time, and, this is America, and they voted the way that they voted, and that's their right. We're not all the same, but should they be kicked out of their office, their volunteer office, for voting the way that they wanted to vote? I don't think so. That's just my opinion, but I just wanted to share my opinion with all of you, and I have the utmost respect for all of you, as I do for all of my up here. So I just wanted to make that statement. And
Thank you. I think, so we also don't respond to public comment during the public comment period, but because there was a lot of comments made regarding the recall, and it's on the agenda item, it is appropriate to respond to any kind of particular comments. I think one of I think the very important explanation that everyone in King City deserves to understand is this concept about if the recall is successful and a new board is appointed who fulfills the wishes of the recall organizers, which is my understanding, I'm not going to speak for them, but my understanding is that they hope to appoint a board who will scrap the TSP and the master plan, either in full or try to do it in part. And I think that's a really important point to understand is, Mike, can you walk us through specifically what are the options if the recall happens and a new board is appointed? Is it that they would have to abandon the TSP and the master plan completely? Can they take sections of it? Like, what are those options available out there? Because I think the cost implication, and I will just let everyone know, if you want to read my official statement, my personal statement on the recall, you can go to my Facebook page and read my statement that I made over the weekend.
I've already kind of covered this. The process for this, say we get successful and we get a whole new board that decides to essentially rescind or take back ordinances that this council has, whether it's like 5 so far, and each of those pieces is a very important element of the whole plan, right? So just to change a road in that plan would mean that you would have to essentially go back to the beginning with a traffic study, use that traffic study to then build your findings on, propose a new route, and from that new route, you would have to go back through the public process, the community involvement, where that route's going to be, what impacts that route's going to have, and you'd have to go and walk it back through the public process. So essentially, you're talking about another, the transportation system plan was a $350,000 project. The King Terrace Master Plan was another $400 project. We had some other grants in there. We did 3 traffic studies from the very, and we have another grant for $150,000 for an additional alternative study in there as well. So, I mean, when you look at the dollar figures, we're invested about $1 million in change into this planning effort for the Kingston Terrace area. And you would have to essentially start back from the beginning and work your way modified. That's why these plans are usually modified at like a 5, 7, or 10-year process where they go back through a review, and that review is usually funded through like technical assistance dollars with DLCD to update your plans. You do like a new housing needs analysis or something to that effect, which triggers an amendment to the plan. But essentially, you would need to base it off of informational data in the record that supports a change. You don't have that information in the record that would support a different road at this point in time. So you would have to start over and build.
So I can already hear some of the concerns and pushback to that statement. And one of the things that we heard tonight was that alternatives were presented by organizations and individuals. And can you speak to a little bit about the role that our experts and the advice of our experts and maybe why there would be a difference in the weight of the paid expert's opinion versus someone who's coming to present an alternative opinion? Is that something you want to speak to, or do you want me to cover that, or?
We've hired 3 different sets of consultants and traffic engineers Those traffic engineers are hired by the city to give us the best data to produce the best scenario for the future of the city. They're our consultants, the city's consultants. They have the city's best interests in mind as they plan. They're trying to plan a city that's 25, 30, 50 years out into the future and come out with the best system that's going to support the needs of that city. Why we encourage our councils and our staff to pay attention to the consultants that the city hires, whether there are legal attorneys, whether there are traffic engineers, whatever. They're the professionals hired by the city to give us, they have like a fiduciary responsibility to the city, to us, to give us the best information possible. Give us their opinion on how to satisfy the criteria in the code. So moving forward by essentially adopting their recommendations and ensuring that we've satisfied all the criteria from statewide planning goal 1 through statewide planning goal 21, 22, whatever it is up to these days, we have now satisfied all those goals because we adhere to and follow the advice of our technical experts. That's where we're sitting today. We have a very strong argument with the system that it's going to function into the future, that we have a method to pay for it, that it should be successful at the end of the day. We don't know if other plans that people put forward on their own time or their own personal interests are going to have the same beneficial effect for the city as a whole as the plan that was developed by our consultants.
Lots of comments and upset, anger, disappointment, frustration were directed at me. And I would like to just take a moment to acknowledge that I understand that everyone in this room, everyone who submitted comments, everyone who took time to be part of this process has strong opinions, has valid concerns, has valid opinions. And if I ever made anyone feel that their concerns weren't valid, then that was a failure of mine to communicate that to you. I have never thought that anyone's concerns weren't valid. I will talk from my own personal opinion and experience and just say, I have always said from the very beginning that I would make my decision that was going to be based on what's in the best interest for the most people to the least amount of detriment to the most people. And I've said that from the beginning. And I have not agreed with all of you. I just simply don't share your opinion. I don't share your conclusions. And while your concerns are valid, I just don't agree that some of your asks or your opinions are what is in the best interest of the city. I just don't. And one of the reasons, and just Dan, I was careless to not explain that one statement that you and I talked about off record, that I never meant to suggest that individual opinions weren't taken, but I always meant that as part of the experts' criteria, that the public comment. So I
simply listening to what you say.
And that's fine. I am right. There have been many times that I've been careless with my words, and for the most part, I've owned when I have shared in the opinions. I've sent some of you apology letters over the years of times where my passions got the best of me over a night, and we're people. We are neighbors, and I'm gonna say I really do push back that this isn't personal. This is very personal, and the reason it's personal is we live in a city that's under 5,000 people. We all our kids go to school together. We share in the same community events. Many of the community events that you have, or some of you in this room have attended, I personally have organized, right? And so part of this is I get it, you don't want it to be personal, but we're not in Portland, right? We are in a tiny little community, and we're all trying to do our best. And the fact that I personally voted in a way that does not agree with you is I I'm sorry that it feels like that invalidates your position. That's not how it's meant. I just don't agree. And part of the issue with the experts, and this is what I wanted to go back to, is for me personally, some of you are going to be impacted by our decisions greater than other people in King City. That is simply a fact. Those that live on Fisher Road, those that live within Rivermead that is going to have a new road at some point near you, however that looks, you will be personally affected. We do not take that lightly. I do not take that decision flippantly. That is an extremely hard position for us to be in. But when I look at what my duty is, and that is to the city, I have to separate out people's personal interests that they have every right to advocate for and fight as hard as they can for their own personal property and their own personal interests. But your personal interests cannot be my primary concern. My primary concern, out of my duty that I took an oath of office to uphold, is to the entire city. And while I hear a lot of you say that we haven't listened, I disagree. We paused for almost a year and a half to look at alternatives. How much did we spend on the alternatives? We spent an additional $150,000 sending this back to our experts that are neutral, that we paid, that we had to go out and get an RFP for. And we sent it back and paused for a year and a half. And when they came back and they said, this is the data, this is the best route, that to me was weighted greater than some of the other evidence or support that was presented in opposition to that plan. And so for me personally, I gave more weight to our neutral experts than to personal interest supported expert, if that makes sense. And that is just my honest assessment of how I had to vote. And everyone has their own criteria, but so part of going forward, what I personally am very concerned about is the fiscal component of this. So if a new master plan in TSP, if the recall goes through and we have a new board that's going to abandon the TSP and master plan, so we heard from a few comments that they don't agree that grant funding is not there, we're not being transparent or truthful about it. So walk us through, from this point forward, if a new plan would have to be commenced, what does the funding of that look like? What are the opportunities out there? What is untapped that hasn't been tapped? I mean, what does that look like?
Constantly pursue grant dollars. On the agenda tonight is addendum to our current grant to see additional planning work in this area. The problem that we would have in trying to chase additional funds for something that we did is one, we're going to be walking all over our agency partners, which isn't going to show very well. And you're going to have some organizations such as Metro and ODOT who put a lot of money into getting across the finish line so we can put houses on the market and get these plans in accordance with state laws and out the door. So they've basically given King City $1 million+ over the span of the last 7 years to hire consultants, to draft the findings, the data necessary to approve these, and the supporting data to go along with it. So if the council throws that all away, one, you're throwing away the investment from those organizations, which I don't have a crystal ball, and you're asking me to tell you what the fallout from that's going to be, but personally just feel like it's going to burn some bridges for us on trying to get additional grant funds. Additionally, I would have to look into the grant agreements that we have for, failing to provide the product that we were on contract to provide those as well. So, you know, I'm not an attorney, but I would have to pull our attorneys on what that looks like.
If the grant funding would have to be paid back, or if, right?
Yeah, we were responsible for having to repay those grant funds for breach of contract. I'm not sure. There's a lot of uncertainty, going through something. It's, you know, similar to like the Damascus situation, where, you had Damascus was brought into your growth boundary, and then they voted to dissolve, essentially, or to disincorporate, right? And then, but they had all these contractual agreements and all these, for a small city, it's something like this could potentially be catastrophic. Or for us, it could be something that breaks our budget because we don't have the kind of money to absorb a $1 million hit, or to redo, or put forth another $1 million on trying to fix something that's already been done. So, giving you just kind of concepts or ideas that come to mind when I think about what could happen, whether, like I said, I don't have a crystal ball, I don't know that's what's going to entail, but, like the question that you're asking me to speculate on, catastrophic.
Yeah, go ahead, of course.
I can think about this crystal ball, because I kind of wish we all had one of those. So, while I'm still a King City councilor, my obligation, hopefully it'll be, you know, for another year or so, is to protect the city. And so I just really kind of want to focus on that. I have a lot of questions, but I don't think they're the kind of questions that I want to ask right now. I want to give them to you so that you can come prepared with, like, some materials at the next meeting. But it's kind of like some critical stuff, right? Because we will need to make sure that the city is protected, to make sure our city employees are protected, if we end up with a council of one for a short period of time. And so I think that that needs to be a focus of our December meeting. And, you know, and a lot of this, like, if the recall petitions are turned in, and if that happens, then, you know, it is possible that, that we, you know, we would have, and I don't know how long they take to count any ballots or anything like that. So that would be maybe a question, like, hey, when would people get ballots if that happens? And then when would they be counted? And then, is it like you're done that day, or we don't know any of that. And so when I look at the calendar, I worry about our January 17th council meeting, and who may or may not be present as a counselor at that meeting. So I think that it would be in the best interest of the city for us to possibly meet twice in December, and additionally, schedule a second earlier meeting in January, so that the council can do some business. And the good news is, you know, if we are not indeed recalled, then we can still have some additional meetings if we. And I'm also thinking, I have a list, and you know what? A lot of my questions came from some of the testimony tonight. So 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I have 14 items here. Some of them will probably merge together, but that are questions that some will be short answers, I'm sure. some of them might have to be crystal ball answers, but I would like to be able to provide that list to you, and then, maybe have a work session before our December 20th meeting. And maybe consider, depending on turnaround, I know we have holiday next week, but, looking at calendars and seeing if we need to gather December 6th or December 13th, or adding some, time, because it's not super effective for me to, not have a little more time. Like, you can give us your answers right now, but I would like for you to have time
Right.
to come up with, like, contact agencies and come up with some answers, and then have some time to review that. Now, if we want to have a meeting in another, well, I guess the 6th is 3 weeks. Thanks, everyone, for listening to my stream.
But I think we should go through, I think we should give him your questions and just not have him provide the answers. Just let's try to orient some of the information that they can go and collect to bring
Well, I need to get
back.
myself organized, so
Okay.
my hope is that I can, like, email a bulleted list or like a numeric list, and go from there. Because
Okay.
I need to decipher my own
Sure.
notes. What I'm saying is I'm not prepared. I know I have questions,
Right.
but I just need a minute.
Right.
I need a couple days.
Can I interject there?
Of course, yeah.
My concern is, I would love to hear what your questions are and what your concerns are now here, because kind of under a timeline deadline with this, I mean, and get it before that, then it automatically triggers next step. So I don't know how much time we have left to hear what your concerns are, and I just want all of this is our opportunity, I think. So,
Right, so
if you
that's
feel-
why I was suggesting for our December 20th meeting.
I don't know if we really have time for that, because once the signatures are turned in, that's it.
Well, they have to be
Our
validated.
signatures are turned in, there's an election.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, so we have time.
I would just like to stop the signature from going to fruition, and that would be, like, amazing if somehow we could stop the process by coming up with some kind of amazing, miraculous solution tonight that would make our community members happy and that would keep everybody on the city council. Save everyone money, and, I mean, it's possible.
I'm sorry, I don't think that would be an appropriate thing for us to suggest or try to make happen, because it is.
I understand that, but if they decide not to turn in their signatures, don't turn in their signatures, and it's over. I mean, and Randy's nodding his head over there. It's up to them to decide whether or not they want to recall us. I'm not making a decision. I'm just saying, wouldn't it be great if we could come up with a solution? I'm a solution-oriented individual, and I think it's appropriate to share my opinion with everyone. And my opinion is that I would like to not have a recall, and I would like to explore ideas of how to avoid a recall by seeing, is there any way that we could think outside the box, council members, and come up with a solution to make our community members happy. That's all I'm saying. I would love to talk through that. I'm not sure how that would work, but if there's a way that we could
I just feel like that's quid pro quo and doesn't feel ethical to me.
I'm just trying to help by keeping everything together. I'm not sure why that would be unethical, but trying to be supportive of my fellow councilors, trying to keep us all together, but I don't know, how do the rest of you feel? I just feel like this is the opportunity to define our signatures.
Well, with that in mind, what if we gather for a December 6th meeting?
They have their signatures before December 6th. I know that's their right, but wouldn't you rather take this opportunity now and
I forget it.
other comments from, thoughts from down here? We haven't heard from the three of you. Let's hear from you guys.
I don't know that I really have a particular comment. I appreciate Shauna's comments. I appreciate the fact that she is not supportive of her wanting to be supportive of council. I would be hopeful that there is possibly gone through this, but I appreciate her that might be an option.
I really appreciate everyone coming out. I always tell people, I say, come to the council meetings, right? Come join us and we can talk through what we have on the table. And right from the get-go, I've mentioned this during all the process that we've been going through. If we have a way of saying, and you don't have to raise your hand or say anything, if we have a way of checking with the people that we're looking at the alternatives and what's going to happen to their property, what do you think will happen? We'll be in this cycle, we'll never get out of it, because they'll also come out here and protest that we're trying to get through their property and they won't let us do it. So I just say we have done this in the interest of the city and the people. We're growing, there's no doubt about that. We have to grow. As we're growing, we have to be prepared and make plans, and that's what we're doing right now. So if there is a way to say, yes, you sent the alternatives. I got emails and I forwarded them to Mike, sent it to the group that was kind of looking at the alternatives. So we didn't just kind of we didn't just shoot you off and say, hey, we're not listening to you. We did listen to you. I got emails, I forwarded them to Mike, and the consultants did their job, right? And so right now we're just looking at what the consultants, we're not experts in the field, and they gave us the best options that they presented to us. And based on what was presented, we voted based on what was presented. So I would say if we want to go back and say, look at the other alternatives, have we looked into the people that will be impacted by the alternatives that are being provided? Are they here today in the gathering? No, I don't think so. As soon as we go and say, this is the next route, this is the alternative we're going, we'll have those people in the room today, but they're not here today. Tough situation. We're all in this together. Everyone is enjoying this. We're all going through all the things. I live on Fisher Road. People have asked me, you live on Fisher Road, don't you have concerns? I said, I looked at what was presented. If I have my personal concern, I'm not going to be on what is being, they had data, they had information, and they used all of that to come up with the plan. That's what they did. And I took what they presented us and trusted that, yes, they did their best. Right? So if we want to go back and look at this and say, okay, consider the other alternatives, what do you think will happen if we go that route? People that are going to be impacted if we go that route. All being here. We'll never get out of this cycle to be ongoing and ongoing and ongoing. And time is not on our side. Challenge for everyone, of course. And we're all in this together.
I mean, I agree. Thank you, Shauna, for your words and support. It's appreciated. And just in looking in this map that was handed to us, there's no key on it, because to me,
Yeah.
You can continue with your comments, I'd like to hear them.
I was gonna read, I mean, I was pretty much done, but I was just gonna read you, since we lost audio. No, yeah.
Lori is out there. Okay, we'll wait for Lori.
Oh, Lori's still out.
All right. Are we back, on Zoom? Okay.
Let me double check, hold on.
Okay.
Yeah, no, we're waiting for Lori here.
Yeah, I won't put us back on the record. I just want to make sure we're all connected again.
Zoom would totally.
I know, well.
It's disgusting.
I have never run across anything like that before, and
It's happening, Beaverton
a couple months
just had a
ago.
horrific one,
Yeah.
much worse than that, but,
And that's the concern we have,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
You're all law abiding and you're in here, but the rogues out there will
Yeah.
pick it up and run with it, and then our life
I
will be
think
in
we
danger.
need to make it so they have to come on camera, because they're hiding behind it. I don't know if we can.
It's a very, very
I know.
small percentage.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it is,
yeah.
totally.
Yeah.
Create those issues.
yeah.
It was
I
just
agree.
totally out of line.
It was awful. And I think, Mike, or Ronnie, I'll just.
CB's talking to me, and they said, City of Beach had a big one.
Yeah, they had a horrible one.
They have a process now, and I'll see what they're doing.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
And they also put a disclaimer on their website,
Yeah.
Right.
I would like to do a press release tomorrow and just do a statement. You know, I don't know if it has to be a full press release, but I think we should write some statement tomorrow. I'll grab you Beaverton, the one that Beaverton put out, but, because they kind of addressed it, so I think we should put it out on social media and stuff. So I'll talk that on the agenda, so we get on the record here in a second, but, all right, Lori, are you ready? Sorry, so, all right, we're gonna call this meeting back to order. So a few things just to address quickly. It turns out that we lost about 5 minutes of audio, prior to going on to, that short recess. And so, Councilman Ellis is gonna kind of do a recap, and we'll just kind of summarize. Also kind of discussed, just while we were in the room, again, was just the deplorable, interruption that we had earlier. And I think it would be a good idea, and I think everyone kind of agrees, that we put out a statement tomorrow about the interruption of the council meeting. We know the city of Beaverton had a very similar, very horrific, racist kind of interjection into their council meeting. And so we can kind of look at their statement was. And so maybe tomorrow we'll circulate amongst us by email and then put a statement out. But so that was discussed shortly, kind of off the record. And then, Mark, do you want to kind of give us a recap, and then we'll get us back. And so now I believe we're all good to go online.
Yeah.
So, all right.
Yeah, so just to recap, thank Shauna for her words and support. And then, just the map that was given to us by Mr. Meyer tonight, from, sounds like one of the land developers, just there's no key on it, so it's hard to tell exactly where the roads are, but then I guess now I understand that they are within the right of way, the give of what a road was on the plan, which we all knew plans can change, because that's why they're there, and it's trying to look out and forecast. So it's possible this could be what the road network looks like. We don't know, but that could obviously be what happens. And like Mike said earlier, with the plan, we would come up as the developers come, and then we would look at and make those adjustments as they go. And as in the world that I work in, plans, you always make changes to them.
Yeah.
So.
If you don't mind my interjecting, I just want to point out, we've said from the very beginning, these are lines on a map. That's all they are, and we don't know exactly where those lines are going to be until the developer comes in with a plat and actually proposes those lines. Now, the development, the plan, the master plan, has a series of components to it, and one of them is the functional plan on where the streets are supposed to be. By Herb's work to develop a functional plan, that work that's in here that was provided through our traffic engineers. That still allows for some variance on the ground on where these roads are actually located, because we haven't been on the ground, we haven't surveyed this area, and until those surveys and the plats are done, those roads are not set in stone. They can move. I think the functional plan says something like 100 or 200 linear feet north or south of the main road, and I think there's flexibility in there. What Mr. Meyer presented shows, I think, within those flexibility, within those confines of what's built into the functional plan, which is a component of the master plan and a component of the transportation. Those are all options out there. I think these are within probably, well, I'm guessing because I don't, there is a scale here.
There's a scale, but no
it looks
key.
like it's probably close to 100 or 200 linear feet. So I'm assuming that this is pretty close to what would be an allowable
variance within the plan, yeah.
There's variance,
Yes.
there's variance built into the plan.
Right.
It's not set in stone, but there are components. There are certain spots that were identified in the transportation system plan that are necessary. You have to get from C, and so. And just looking at it right now too, it appears, I don't know if that was Mr. Meyer's home that the road goes through, but, looks like it might go right through his home. Well, this one that's proposed by, MLG does appear to go through a home.
Yeah, I don't know whose
home that is. It's about two.
But like here, it is, it's a line that could move within a
it looks like it
couple
goes
of
through
feet.
someone's home that's 2 homes north of where Mr. Meyer lives.
Right.
But, I mean, the thing is that if that house develops and they wanna put the road there, then
That's
their prerogative, right?
Yeah.
So as long as it meets the regulating plan, then the planning staff or the planning commission would then approve. Conform with the code and the regulating plan that's in the master plan.
Mike, one of the questions I can just hear people asking, is if there's variance within the road, within the plan right now, why can't we just change the road from the TSP and master plan? If there's this ability to make some changes in the plan, but on the other hand, we're saying we can't change the plan itself.
Because it's not gonna resolve their issue. Their issue is that Fisher gets connected. Fisher gets connected every scenario. There's no scenario where Fisher does not extend across the Bonneville lines and connect to 100. No scenario where that happens, because the only option is if you funnel everything to Beef Bend and then Beef Bend fails and you have to condemn over 2 miles worth of homes, north and south side of Beef Bend, to make Beef Bend 5 lane, was determined by parties outside of ourselves, Metro and Washington County, that was an unacceptable social impact. So therefore, we have to have.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but weren't there 5 alternatives that branched off of 137?
So the alternatives that you're talking about were roads that are planned in this area. So each one of those roads happens in that plan. And then which one of those 5 alternatives do you want to be the collector?
Right, but you were just saying that everything would funnel up to Beef Bend, but that's not really accurate.
That was one of the alternatives. The no connect alternative was number 5.
There are other alternatives that are part of the plan, is what I'm saying.
You're mistaking them as alternatives. What they are, they're all roads.
Right.
Every single one of them is a road.
Right.
That still has Fisher Road connecting and going over there. And what they found is that no matter which one you say is your collector, they're all gonna funnel down to this. So then you're gonna have a local street, that's a local Fisher Road, that's not built to the standard or the road, the vehicles that are on there. And so that presented an unsafe situation, local road, carrying capacity that it shouldn't be carrying. Roads are still there. You still have all 4 roads built into the plan. We're gonna have those roads. The trouble is when you have, significant traffic load on a 28-foot road, or 26-foot road through, like what you see through 28 includes the curve. parking on one side, and then no stripes, no bike lanes, no nothing. So, like that. I would just point you to like Roseberry or Macbeth. The Roseberry HOA and Macbeth are the perfect examples of a local road that would be essentially, that was determined to be an unsafe scenario. That's why Fisher Road being the only road that is 34, 35 feet wide, and I think you add the curves, it's 36, so I think that from asphalt's 34, you add the curve, that's 36, that allows for parking on both sides, or two travel lanes. Even narrowed it down, through the transportation plan.
You mean one travel lane going each direction? You mean
What's that?
two travel lanes going each? One travel lane, or, I'm just trying to clarify.
You would have a lane going east and a lane going west.
One.
Right, not two,
No.
it's one.
One.
Yeah, which is what, it sounded like you were saying
So
two, and then,
two travel lanes, so you have one going eastbound, one.
right, exactly, right.
Right?
Yeah.
So, essentially, we narrowed it down through the area from 150th, to 131st to maintain the profile, and even narrow it down even further. So instead of it being the current profile that Fisher is between 131st and the Bonneville lines, it narrows down further into a 50-foot right-of-way, which only allows parking on one side, and then you still have your two travel lanes. You'll have one travel lane going east, travel lane going west, parking on one side. So that was the narrowest that we could get it, and we narrowed it down and necked it down through that area to discourage the amount of cut-through traffic that we're projecting. But the minute that you're connected to 137, the traffic's going to flow through Fisher. There was no scenario where it doesn't get connected to 100. At that point in time, the argument becomes, where do we start trying to prevent the clogs, and where do we try to address the congestion that we see not only in East Bend, but on 137th, through the school zone on 131st Street? Where do we provide access for emergency vehicles? Where do we provide interconnectivity for our local residents, not just now, but into the future? So all those questions, all those components are answered in the transportation system plan and in the master plan, and they solve those problems. That includes an extension beyond end of Riverland. Your argument.
So we're under the recall section of the agenda. I feel like we are far, far afield. However, these are just, right, it's all important to talk about. It's all kind of connected because obviously we're being recalled specifically for the votes on these plans. So while it's not completely separate. So, but I want to rein us back in, and so there's a couple answers so that I would like to know whenever we meet. And I think later on the agenda, we'll talk about when our next meeting is, if we're going to have a work session, all of that. But so some of the questions that I kind of have is, they're kind of a little bigger. But I think one of the missing components here is an understanding of, now that we're a city of 5,000 people and we are required to have a TSP and a master plan, if we don't, let's say a board comes in and decides we just are going to buck and not be compliant. We're not going to spend the money. We just aren't going to get those things. I know that the ultimate end result is the potential dissolution of the city, right? Like the city can just completely fall apart. However, I would like to better understand fiscally some of the impacts of some of these things. So I would like to understand, what does it really mean if we don't have a TSP and a master plan? What are the actual consequences, and what does that kind of look like, right? So I just want a better understanding of that, and so if you can tell us next time. I'd also really like to understand that one of the big fears that I have is we only have so much money, and we can argue over and over and over again about whether we would in the future be able to get a grant. I mean, I think a lot of the grant questions, I think we would like those answered, Mike. So like, right? I don't think we have to make all that, I don't think it's worth having the attorneys analyze and waste that money right now, because if the recall never happens, I think that's not a good use of our funds. But eventually, at some point, we do need to know, are there breach of contracts in the grants that we already received? What happens with the money that we've already received? What's the consequences of those actions if we have someone, if we have a board that goes forward and abandons them? And then I'd also like to understand, there's only so much money in the pot. The largest line item of our budget is the police department. Is there an eventual, could a new council come in and disband our police to pay for a TSP and a master plan, for example? And if they can do that, what can we do to protect our employees in our police department? Because it's some of those very dire consequences that I think we really have to understand what are our options and what really is an option, what are the potential consequences that could come about. So there's just so many unanswered questions, but basically a better understanding overall of the kind of finances, right? If that makes sense. And then I think, Kate, if you're gonna, maybe what we do is if everyone following this meeting, if they submit questions to you, and then we can clarify at the next meeting, maybe read the questions so that so there's transparency over, right, that you didn't submit questions in secret or anything like that. So we can kind of address that. But I agree that we all just have a lot of questions. We need to kind of articulate them, and it's hard to do that all in the fly necessarily. So, okay, any other recall questions, discussion right now that you want to, statements, anything? You don't have to, but I mean, I don't want to, I want to make sure you have an opportunity.
Just with regards to recall, as the others have said, I thank you for showing support. I also just would come back to, as we've all noted, is that when we're in this position, we have experts that provide us with information, provide us with analysis, and frankly, when you have multiple experts that provide similar analysis and similar conclusions, that is, when you're charged with making a decision on behalf of an entire community, and repeated evidence, in this case, support from experts, leads you to a specific conclusion that is supported by those experts. I don't see that, I guess, that is doing our job. That is listening to the public, and that does play into the conversations that Mike and I had about alternative 3, which was my favorite throughout the whole process. That also does go back before last November when we were discussing these things. In the end, all the analysis, there were being conclusions on that, and as a public representative, I believe that I would not be doing my job if I had ignored those. And that's really all I have to say.
Thank you. All right. Agenda item, we're moving on. Okay. So next up in the agenda is going to be new business, Metro Addendum for Agreement 936297. Action requested of the council is to discuss and authorize the city manager to negotiate and execute the addendum. Take us away, Mike.
The addendum that we're trying to request for additional authorization to continue some planning work out in the Kingston Terrace area and really go out and map the local wetland inventory. So we had David Evans and Associates on board. They did a partial job of mapping the local wetlands and the habitat areas. But most of that mapping was off of the Metro maps. It'd actually be more of like an Our estimate is that it's gonna cost us about $90,000 to $110,000 to complete this whole thing based on the acreage and size and, community involvement pieces. We're hopeful that we can do this through a simple addendum to our current contract with Metro. Our concern is that we've already, exhausted a couple addendums to add the COVID, additional outreach, public outreach through COVID, and also, the alternative. So we've already requested 2 addendums, and we don't know if there's a limit on how many addendums. And additionally, this adds additional work, our grant, that probably won't, that will get final. It puts out, current grant agreement. Authorize me to go ahead and execute that agreement with, Metro, and Metro agrees to authorize the addendum, then we can basically get going on it. Whereas our alternative is to see if DLCD grants us the technical. Then we have to go through contracting with DLCD. That can take time. Usually, my experience has been it usually takes us, if the grant's awarded in January, then, you know, contracting through DOJ happens in March and April, and then there's back and forth in May. We agree on a scope of work in June or July, and we finally sign documents in August, and then we usually have to go out for a request for proposals for contractors, and that takes us a couple of months, like 60 days on that front. And there's contracting with the contractor, so it pushes it back at least a year just before we even get started. And so this Metro addendum is a way that maybe we can get going a little bit earlier and get on these local weapon inventories a little bit earlier. Whereas we could be out a year before we're, the deal.
All right. Questions from Mike?
This is not a for sure,
Not for sure.
but you've been somewhat encouraged by.
Yes. So we've run it by, you know, the planning and development department at Metro. We've run it by the legal counsel of Metro, and so far, everybody seems to be in favor of it as moving forward. This was originally conversation between DLCD and Metro on trying to move the funding source from DLCD's Technical Assistant Grant Fund into the Metro CDT Fund. So, which makes sense because Metro is kind of our, we're under the Metro umbrella. And so it makes more sense to pay for these things under the Metro umbrella than it does under the state umbrella. So from that aspect, DLCD reached out to Metro, asked them if there would be an opportunity. They've been seeking and looking through to see if there actually is an alternative, and we're hopeful that we will get an answer soon. But if they reject our request, then we still have our grant application into DLCD. This might not.
And that was gonna be my question, is that can we continue with both
Right.
processes, applications, while you try to negotiate the addendum so that we don't lose out on the opportunity of the other if we don't get one or the other, right?
That's my suggestion.
Yeah.
Right now, we still have that in writing,
Right.
but if Metro comes in and says, we'll fund it for you through
Right.
an addendum, then I'll call DLCD and withdraw our application.
That's my question.
All right. Any other questions for Mike? Okay. I'll entertain a motion if we have one.
So I move that, council authorize the city manager to negotiate and execute
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. You need a roll call vote, Mike?
Yeah, I could just do a show of hands since we're all here
Okay.
for it, so.
All those in favor say aye. Motion carries. All right. Chief, we are ready for your report.
All right. Well, I was gonna come asking for some money, but shelve that one for right now.
Better now while we still have some.
But, little staff report, so Officer Cotillo, who is our newest officer, has just completed his probationary period, so we can congratulate him on that. That's, going on. Kind of move on, and, reflect back to some stuff we talked about, graffiti. We recently arrested 2 people, that were taggers, both. So hopefully we can get into a little bit more. One was from your guys' neighborhood.
Yep.
And then another one was from here, and so we were able to, get those, arrested and referred. Next part was, it's kind of, we're getting into stat time of year, kind of make, we saw some upticks on custodies in King City, and then we took a look, and in 2022, or 2022, we had 6 custodies for the year, 60. And so far for this year, 2023, we have 82. So, we got about 37. And looking at reports written, we're gonna probably be a little bit above. Reports written basically is their investigation. Custody, along that line, we're below 200s, which is pretty close on par, but we're gonna exceed what we did. And that has, numbers are kind of skewed, because calls for service, we average about 1.5 a day. So with that number jump, calls for service compared to. So I just wanted to outline kind of the stats. We will have a bigger dive into the stats coming up. It's, I have difficulty. Their employees. I can be a little bit more, but it just kind of shows that the police department as a whole is. And especially with custodies, can I explain it? No. It's something that I see where we're getting kind of what I call bounce. And as we start to see some areas start to some of the houses. So we've had an uptick in that. That is about it.
So first of all, Chief, great job on the graffiti arrests. We applaud you for that. We know those are very difficult crimes to.
I mean, as a team.
I know. Well, I'm extending to your whole department, right? But
I actually want to point out one of them was due to us making contact. So I've always said it's a collaboration.
Right.
I mean, sometimes there's just only one person working, and so it's hard to cover. Even though it's a small town, it's hard to cover all the areas.
Mm-hmm.
And so with being able to get that information that we get, I got, but we were able to do it quick and be able to make that arrest. Love that collaboration. I love when people give us the info, because it's something that what people think is minor, I think relax.
Right.
So.
Right.
Sorry to interrupt.
No. I think that's a great segue to remind people that they can always call. So if they call Washington County non-emergency, that creates and ask to speak to a King City police officer, that creates a record that gets tracked, and that's the best way to ensure, rather than calling the front office or something, right?
They actually emailed me on that one.
Oh, well, okay, well, there we go, but,
It was on
yeah.
a day off, and
Okay.
I just happened to look at my
Well, wow.
and I'm looking at it, and I'm like, okay, we need to get on this, and so it's just
Perfect.
getting a hold of, another officer, it's just lucky,
Yeah.
is what that matters. Protocols, because it creates a record.
Right.
And
And we can kind of track it. But also, this is also a good reminder to remind those who might be on Zoom and looking later that the website has a citizen reporter function where you can go on. Those are not the most appropriate for reporting crimes, but that is a way to report new graffiti that you've seen. It's a way to report a street light that's been out. It's a way to report any other kind of potholes or things like that. So I always like to remind people. Anyway, we thank the residents of King City for providing you information. We thank you and your department for solving a very difficult situation that we know will not be the last that we'll have to deal with, but we very much appreciate your efforts. My only question is, with your custodies, are you seeing the issues at Washington County Jail right now impact some of these arrests, or and can you walk us through a little bit? I think everyone, as a reminder, I think everyone here knows that Sheriff Pat Garrett has retired. Under Sheriff Caprice Messi, is that how you pronounce it? Massey, has been appointed, and I very much, she's wonderful. If you haven't met her yet, I'm going to invite her to come and speak to us. I think that's on their rotation. So she'll come and address the council and introduce herself. But there's a lot going on with the jail right now. So how is that impacting this uptick in custodies, right?
And they're not, to appear, then they are, and frustrating for us, because, it is frustrating, you have to call. They'll say, hey, anybody, and they're like, no. They'll try to get emails out to us on that, because they'll put restrictions on it, because they've shut down, I think it's. And so it used to be 500 and some odd people you could have in custody, and now it's 300, I think it's 200 less. And so it's one of those things. Assault on people, felonies, and but it definitely does affect, what's something that.
At one of the last Washington County Mayor's meetings, we had Sheriff Garrett and DA Barton join us. And one of the things that Sheriff Garrett was saying was that he always allows for calls to see if there is an exception under the circumstances. But we had met, I believe it was like Tuesday morning, and he said by that meeting they'd already received 7 calls asking for exceptions to be made. And so it's he just said it's an extremely difficult situation right now.
You have to plead your case with and explain to them, hey, this person's been, it's usually the people that are just a continual problem, you're just getting repeated, even 30 minutes later. Issues, and so you have to really be able to articulate to the staff there that, hey, So, and it could be something where I always ask, hey, just so, yeah, it's difficult at best. Hopefully, you know, I know they said they've had success with, you know, for they have done some different things where they're pulling people from the road. Their time is now granted at time. It'll only attract you for a little while.
Sure.
You're just gonna be tired of working
Right.
again, right? So, but it has kind of helped alleviate some problems, but.
No pressure. Other questions for Chief?
Would you happen to have any updates regarding the vehicle upgrades and recon?
Oh, yeah, your vehicle upgrades.
So on the vehicle stuff, haven't heard a word. That car was being made, was being made by Dodge and stuff, and so that was one of those, because I opted to save $5,000 and went with 2023 model instead of the 2020. And with not being, colors and stuff, and so with it not being a white patrol car anymore, you know, that added a little bit of extra time to it. And then as far as the body cams go, that's something that we still are, you know, trying to appropriately with Axon, and once those are up, we're still have to have a way above my knowledge level of what the issue is with the communication, because it would make things a lot easier, and it's one of those things.
Anyone else? Weston?
First, I'd like to introduce Max. Max Carter is our new land use planner.
Hi,
Hello,
Max. Welcome.
Yeah, I've been here for a few weeks now, and I'm looking forward to doing my best work for the city. Everything out, moving forward.
Perfect, thank you. Welcome, congratulations.
Thank you. And right off the bat, Max has, two annexation components. One is, some property down near River's Edge, where the Habitat Humanity property is being annexed southwest of that, southwest edge.
Making good progress on that project, I'm very excited.
Yes, it looks fun, looks good, and I'm excited to see them come online.
Yep.
So that's one that, where it has been inquiring. The other is that's coming out of, pretty, hard and heavy right now is the 210-acre annexation in the Kingston Terrace area along East Bend Road to about 150th and then 150th over. So that's, they've submitted a pre-app for us. They've, provided a lot of data that we've been trying to get through, and that has been essentially consuming about 90% of our time over the past couple of weeks, and probably will consume a lot of our time going forward. We have a planning commission work session scheduled for the 29th of November. We have a planning commission hearing, scheduled for December 6th. That will likely be coming at the council probably by December 20th potentially, and potentially we could see that by January 17th. So with that comes annexation agreements, development agreements, zoning requirements, DLCD notices, public notices, published notices, everything that we've been. So that has been keeping us very busy these last couple days. That's part of that. You may have also seen surveyors out in the West Side Trail segment area from Slauson River up to East Bend. that is part of the, RFFA grant that we received from Metro Parks and Trails. And, we've had HLB OTAC out there surveying the site so that, we can have trail work and engineering and planning. So there'll probably be some community meetings and things going forward on what kind of parks and features do we want to see in this, linear park segment from this Walton. Washington County did a rapid, beacon light at, Peachtree. That was one of our safety concerns, is on our safety list. I get to check that box off since they went ahead and did that. But the next big thing is going to be this West Side Trail segment and the annexation. But, among other things that you all are dealing with. I think I talked enough.
I have a question. It'll be a quick one. So the West Side Trail, that's going up under the
Power
line,
line.
Bonneville. How will that intersect with,
The, crosswalk crossing or, beacon crossing, something to that effect, bike safe, crossing. I think, Beaverton has done a really great job on their West Side Trail segment. And, if you ever fancy a bike ride or something and go ride those trails, you'll see how it interfaces, how the roads cross those, and how they'll have like, beacon stops for bikes and
They have some raised kind of entry into the section that's raised up. It's really interesting, yeah.
And then it goes back into the pathway, and there'll be some demarcation on each side. But the thing that we were thinking about is, we haven't got to design level yet. We still have a whole bunch to go through, but, one thing that we'd really like to see is river access. And so, one of the features that we're talking about designing is a boat ramp, an ADA accessible boat ramp in here underneath the Bonneville power line. And now that Kinder Morgan is sinking that line down, we believe that we can actually accomplish that at that site. It does require us to do a fairly substantial removal and fill along that area and some grading work, some pretty heavy grading work along that area. But
that erosion right there is so bad anyway that
Right.
it needs restoration no matter what.
Yes,
So,
we do. And then we also like the concept of having a public restroom and a parking facility and maybe some e-bike lockers and some kayak lockers or something to that effect where you can address a lot of these, new systems. And maybe you have parking within e-charging location. Maybe you have a scooter exchange or a bike co-op at that location along with a kayak locker. We also have to program in this, the eventual, bike ped crossing of this Walton River over to Heritage Pines on the south side. And that is a big, project, a regional project that's in the, regional, plan. It's under strategic right now, so it would be one of those long-term strategic looks. But if we get enough agencies, if Metro's on board, Washington County's on board, King City's on board, Tualatin's on board, and we can apply for some federal funding for a bridge across there, essentially program in where that bridge landing project, along with how that's going to interface with the boat ramp, how it's going to interface for crossings on the roads that are going to go over there. You have, Montague, Fisher, Capulet, and Avenue B, as well as Beef Bend are all, transportation facilities that cross that, right of way or that strip. So, those all get that answer.
Other,
Can I speak to
you can wait until after the meeting and ask then. All right, other individuals, any
Yes, I have.
comments, questions? Yep.
I don't know if you've heard, anything about the tennis court. With the rain back, there are puddles of water. People are kind of complaining about they're not able to play because the balls are just wet and splashing water. And we have other complaints of people letting their pets run in the S3 and then they don't pick up.
I'll take it up with Dave. I know that we've had the tennis court resurfacing on our capital project list, but it hasn't been budgeted. That'd be something come budget time that we look to budget. But I will, back up on the goal list, tennis court, and I'll talk to Dave a little bit about the, animal park. We have signs everywhere, and we provide bags and everything. It's just, other than hold their hand as they walk out there, I don't know what else we can.
I had someone's dog almost attack my dogs because they weren't on the leash, and she's holding the leash in her hand. It's like,
Very frustrating.
I have a suggestion, Smart, for the tennis court, a short-term solution is they make squeegees for tennis courts. It'd be a lot more affordable. I mean, obviously resurfacing on the road, but that is very expensive.
Yeah.
That's a great idea, yeah.
Leave it out there, like,
Get a couple of squeegees and put them in the
clamp it
court,
to the,
yeah.
to the fence, right, so it
Yeah.
can just stick
I think
there.
that's- yeah.
Once you squeegee them off, they dry really quickly.
Oh, do they?
That's a great idea.
That might be something we can provide.
Yeah.
And what I was actually thinking was that, he could keep it in the shed right there next to the tennis court, and then when he sees a
In the
puddle,
morning or something, you
it
can just,
takes like 10 seconds to sweep.
Thank you.
Other questions, comments? I had one and this is for a future agenda item. So a new resident of King City who just moved in, contacted Ronnie and I by email a couple days ago and wanted, to let us know about Ridwell and was interested in having Ridwell come. It has been a while since we have had an update as to the Washington County litigation, whether Ridwell is an option, and all of that. This is probably the third email over the last 6 months that I've received. So I think it's probably, if you could, at the next agenda, either as part of a staff report, or I don't know if we put it on the agenda item, but if you could just kind of give us an update as to what, is it an option, what happened with that litigation, why, if it's not an option, why, right? But
Wasn't there something with our franchise agreement?
it was but that was what was getting litigated, and I just don't know the outcome of that. It still could be in the court. I don't know.
But that would be our franchise agreement, not Washington County's franchise agreement. And our franchise agreement is with to provide those services, and we had.
And Pride added a lot of these services. I don't know what Ridwell provides over and above than what Pride currently is.
Yeah, I think that's the main difference.
Right, the purple box that they have now.
Stuff, yeah. To me, I just didn't know, I know that we had an issue, but my understanding was Washington County also, it had to do with, not a collective bargaining agreement, but I can't remember the kind of, I thought that was a component of the litigation, because all the cities have this franchise issue, which is part of why Washington County said, I thought it was kind of like, hey, no. Anyway, but let's just get it would be nice to clarify so that when I get these emails, I can accurately tell people why or why not we,
I think they reached some sort of agreement where if it's something that the franchise agreement provider can't provide or is not willing to provide, then there's an avenue for them to provide that service. But pretty sure that our service provider offered to provide those services. So there's no avenue. Now, that's where I thought it was left off with, and I can ask Kristen.
Yeah, that's what I thought, yeah.
I can ask Kristen to come back and explain it again.
I don't think we need that.
She could just provide a statement, maybe.
I wasn't under the impression that a final conclusion on the issue had been reached. If I'm misinformed, that's fine, and you and I can, you can tell me. It's just that when I received the last email, it prompted me to think, I actually don't know I know where it was going, I just don't know where officially it ended, and I would like to be able to give accurate information if people reach out about Ridwell. So,
I think there were some cities that have their own franchise agreement with their own providers outside of where ours is. with their provider, who may or may not be private schools, if they work out an agreement on that, on how to, separate the services and illustrate that Ridwell was gonna provide X, Y, and Z, and their regular franchise provider was gonna provide the other 3, 4, or 5 components. So, dive into it, put it on for discussion, and figure out what happened, questioning.
Yeah, and then, there is, I don't know if you've been in, just since we're on this topic, Mike, there is a little bit of a dispute brewing between Metro and the outer Washington County municipalities and garbage and recycling, provider. Have you heard about this?
Solid waste.
Correct.
Labs,
So I think, I don't think it's something that we need to discuss quite like yet, but I think we should. It has to do with the dumping fees for metro facilities versus non-metro facilities are, and I say this off of memory, do not quote me on this because I don't have the statistics in front of me, but it's like a $350 difference per load. And so there is a real argument brewing about the equity between a metro facility and an independent facility and how they're going to address that. So that's kind of been a topic within the Washington County mayors. It's a topic at Metro. There's going to be some proposals that go out there that I think we just need to keep an eye on the situation. So at some point, we might want to add that to the agenda and talk about it. But I don't think by next meeting, and probably not in January, but maybe in February, we just keep our ears to the ground and look at that. Because apparently the last meeting at Metro was quite heated, is that what I understood over this topic. All right. Any other questions for Mike and his report? All right, we'll start down with Councilor Petrie.
So I did on to the JPAC, which is the Joint Policy Advisory Transportation. This is a Metro committee, and also the MPAC, the Policy Advisory Committee. The things that I thought of interest to you all in JPAC was that I mentioned at the last meeting that they were putting together a letter to send to OTC, the Oregon Transportation Commission. They have real concerns about the what appears to be a shortfall in money coming up for the next period of 2027 to 2030, that there might not be money to cover some of the projects that are already being planned. So staff put together a letter, and the 3 points that they wanted to put forward on behalf of the Metro region with OTC. First one is that they wanted the OTC to proactively engage with JPAC and Metro Council in developing a state legislative transportation funding strategy for 2025 legislative session. So that's what they want to do. They wanted to involve local organizations. They want the LOC involved, the Association of Oregon Counties, ODOT, regional agencies, local agencies, city, everyone to get together and speak with a unified voice towards new funding streams when they go to the legislature. So, asked for. The second thing was the newly adopted Oregon Transportation Plan. They wanted to guide investment decisions. That they're expecting maybe $70 million that's going to be available in this time period of discretionary funding. They want it to be invested in the Great Streets Funding Program, which is the rest of state access on state facilities, which would also trickle down to us. The third thing in the letter was they wanted to prepare now to allocate unexpected revenues. So unexpected revenues come in during sessions. They come from federal money comes up, other kinds of monies come available. They want them to actually plan to allocate that money for urban arterial highways, so that would essentially affect us. and to continue collaborating between all the communities and ODOT. So that was the letter they put forward to the OTC, and that was, they approved sending that out at the October meeting. Now on the RTP, so it's about ready to adopt the RTP. In JPAC, we're discussing staff topics, and these are the ones that I thought would be of interest to you. They're actually, JPAC is voting on their recommendation tomorrow, on the 16th. For October, so one of the policies is investment emphasis, and I think I mentioned before that ODOT has a project that's number 12095, and it represents $349 million, and it's listed as safety and operations projects. And what JPAC and everybody else wants to know is, what does that really mean? So they have asked ODOT to unbundle that project item, 2023-2030 timeframe, and they want specifics about project locations and details. Really looking for some oversight. So we'll see. That's the recommendation that JPAC is putting into RTP. The pricing policy, they want to identify the work needed to address the local and regional concerns prior to the implementation of the tolling project. They want to address diversion and increased crashes on urban arterials because of diversion. And they want ODOT to follow the pricing policies that are in the RTP. So these are things they can put into the RTP. I mean that that's going to happen, but they can ask. And then on the funding, the transportation funding regional issue, they really want RTP to address the fact that we need to start preparing now for the 2025 legislative session. The whole region needs to come together to support investment in transportation, all types, community-based regional service. Climate and mobility, there wasn't really much to say. These are the things that JPAC is recommending to add to the RTP that weren't there. So Metro will, of course, make their decision at the end of the month of whether they're going to go along with the amendments or they'll have their own amendments. On a different topic for JPAC, they were talking about their, also, in addition to the RTP, they're also having to have a resolution to approve the high-capacity transit strategy. I think I mentioned that. Language and technical change. Put on that tomorrow as well. And the last thing for JPAC was the 82nd Avenue Transit Plan. You may have heard about this. It's not really affecting us because it's on the side, but ODOT has agreed to transfer jurisdiction for 82nd Avenue over to Portland. And that 82nd Avenue runs from north part of Portland all the way to Clackamas Town Center. Of course, that gets into no longer Portland. So JPAC and Metro are want to get a little bit involved with it, and Metro wants to create a steering committee, all the stakeholders, coordinate and to look for transit improvement opportunities on the full length of the avenue, which would be from Clackamas Town Center all the way up into North Portland and also airport. Interesting fact is that 82nd is the highest bus ridership corridor. This would be, I think, an example of what could happen if we could get more ridership in some of our corridors, that everyone comes together and really comes to. That's what happened in JPAC in October. MPAC in October was actually taking action on the RTC. They had a couple of amendments. Specifically, they were talking about things they wanted to add in concerning the tolling project, and they wanted to eliminate some of the language on the RTP in regard to what I had said about safety tolling project. But basically, MPAC with a couple of days did in fact improve RTP to also they recommended strategy resolution as well. So both of those have been put forward. Impact. Tomorrow, JPAC will vote on that. I expect them to. And then Metro votes on November 30, and that's the. So that's where we're at. Almost done with that.
At the WCC meeting last week, they, the amendments were not well received, and, it was communicated that the last minute amendment came as a disappointing shock, because there was no, and again, I'm paraphrasing, but there was no behind the scenes coordination or discussion. And so it was a surprise amendment, and that process was not well received by ODOT. They were quite upset about that, so.
Well, and those were not unanimous.
Right.
The approval of those amendments was Washington County voted against it.
Right. Thank you for that.
Those are my reports.
Thank you. Perfect.
For October.
Smart.
I don't have anything to report today.
Okay.
The only thing I have to report, just the upcoming, board meeting for MAC on December 15th. Comcast franchise agreement.
You want me to go, or do you want to wait until the end? Does it matter? Does anyone have a preference? All right. So, let's see. In just the last 2 weeks, quite busy in my. So I went to. We had we call it the 5 families, simply because we're 5 cities and we all get along well. We must find a new name for it, but the mayors of Durham, Tualatin, Sherwood, Tigard, and I meet on a very consistent basis. So we had that meeting. Due to schedules, it was just the mayor of Sherwood, Tualatin, and myself. But we met and discussed, and we have some upcoming, some great conversations about broadband and some coordinated projects over some transportation bridges that we're going to kind of talk about. And it was always great to have lunch with my mayors, my neighbor mayor, friends, peers, whatever. So always a pleasure. Then attended. I met with the mayors, with Chair Harrington a couple days ago, so that was quite a fruitful conversation. And the recall of King City topic was in that meeting a lot. And then kind of other issues going around King City, around Washington County. Mayor Lanahan talked about out in North Plains. They're just at the start of their expansion efforts, and are experiencing a lot of the same kind of issues that we have experienced in King City. So we go share a little bit of information about that. Then WCC meeting and the Washington County Mayor's meetings took place. This past weekend, I attended obviously it was Veterans Day. So, Mike, we didn't get an opportunity to talk to you on Veterans Day, but we thank you for your service and hope you had a nice Veterans Day. We also extend that to Officer Aragani, and do we have any other veteran? You and I think it's just you and Courtney. So thank you for your service. Thank you to your families who supported you through your service, right? So I spoke at the Veterans Pancake Breakfast at the Senior Village, which was wonderful, and I had the pleasure of attending with my son, and we just had a great, phenomenal morning. I then attended the King City Lions Club 27th Holiday Bazaar. So if anyone had a chance to go there, that was wonderful. Then attended the KCCA Veterans event on Sunday and spoke at that. And I had the pleasure of taking my father, who's a Marine, with me. So wonderful events all around. Then there was, Halloween. We had, I had a trunk at the Trunk and Treat at Deer Creek, kind of on behalf of the city, and then my husband had a trunk on behalf of the foundation, the King City Community Foundation. So it was a wonderful event, and Chief, King City did a great, they represented well, and Officer Aragoni even had lots of smiles, so that was wonderful. And we all ran out of candy, but King City managed to bring the most, and so everyone was going to KCPD at the end of the line for extra candy to pass out. So that was a wonderful event. It was super fun. And then what else did we? That's about it. That's about it for just the last 2 weeks. There you go. All right.
First, I did want to also thank King City, the police for bringing more candy for that event. Officer Aragoni maybe got my youngest to take about 4 or 5 pieces near the end of the evening. So, I'll thank her for that too that evening. But this last week had the Community Development Block Grants Policy Advisory Board meeting. We were able to use some unallocated funds to fund both of the home projects that we had for this year. These are for supportive services. So we were able to fund both Family Promise of Tualatin Valley and Family Promise of Greater Washington County. They help with utility and rent assistance, able to stay in their homes. So luckily we were able to allocate funds to help with both of those rather than choosing in between them. We also were able to use some contingency funds that were left over from the community development block grants to be able to provide an extra $50,000 to Just Compassion, which is in the process of constructing a 9,000 square foot resource center with 30 overnight guest beds and overnight shelter and transitional housing for 16 people. They also provide job assistance as well. So one of the many things that I really enjoy about being a counselor here is the opportunity to be part of that advisory board and being able to see the number of people that are helped through it. Gratifying meeting.
Thank you. Some more.
All right. Well, thank you to the department. I had a very minor fender bender that was unknown to me. Someone ran into my car while it was parked in front of my house.
Oh, bummer.
I know. And a neighbor reported it, and I saw the damage, and it was just kind of a weird, awkward situation. I didn't know what to do, and so I contacted you guys, and you told me what to do, and it was really easy to just file a report. I did call a non-emergency number, and it was nice and easy, and I appreciate that as a citizen. Such a weird, awkward, kind of funny, like it's not funny that someone runs into your car, but it was kind of fun situation. So thanks to everybody for that. Thank you, Councilor Petrie, for your updates. I loved attending MPAC, and I don't have the time to do it anymore, but I always loved hearing, because you kind of understand what's going on in the region, like before it hits the city. So I appreciate that update.
Thompson?
I don't have anything to report today.
Before we adjourn, I just wanted to let you know, so Lacey Beatty, Mayor of Beaverton, while we were on the break, I asked her to email me the statements that she made and the community made. Okay. You already have it. So I don't know, does everyone feel comfortable with Ronnie and I just working on the statements and kind of, you guys can read it afterwards if you'd like, and it's been published on their website, so anyone can go and see. But I think the tone of what they kind of said speaks to kind of what I think we've been feeling. So as long as everyone's okay with that, I think Ronnie and I will work on a statement and put it out tomorrow about what happened. And then I think we can talk, Ronnie, I'd love for you to find out some of those safeguards that you talked about going forward. I know Councilor Manelis, during the break, suggested that maybe we require.
It's also kind of about Zoom bombers.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I'm like, well, that hasn't happened to us yet.
Well, we had that one, right? We had that one during COVID that was the music back in 20, yeah.
Oh, that's right,
But it was
yeah.
just like, it was,
And that's why
it was
we went
innocuous.
from Zoom meetings to Zoom webinars.
Yeah.
Because you have more control.
Right.
But it's just like,
Finger on the butt.
Yeah, well, and
I was curious as to how our new digital versus analog system, just curious, I mean, like, the timing, of course, because we haven't had that happen before, makes you kind of wonder, like,
Yeah.
if any of the things that we had to download it or do as part of that.
I think it had
is open.
something to do.
Curiosity on that.
and then lastly, Mike, I meant to say this earlier, I think the public comments regarding the planning commission appointment process and all of that, was well taken. I think I personally understand, you know, getting people to apply to the appointments is one process. The work that we need to do to make the process once they apply and how we appoint it is something that's been on our radar for a while, and we just haven't had the opportunity to, with everything that's been going on, to kind of rise that to the working level of doing a work group or so forth. But I think it's clear we need to put that back on the agenda. So I also think when we meet, I just want to put this out there, right? And obviously, if we're all recalled, then it's for the next group to sit through. But if we remain as a council, then in January, I really think we need a full-day workshop to really, we have not met long enough together to really put through early enough in the year our priorities and to talk about some of the things, right? Part of the problem is because we all have careers and we all work, we don't have a lot of time together to work through some of these things. So what I would propose is that we do a workshop in early January. We do some of the work up, you know, that's where we come with our goal setting, all of that. It's team building, but then we could also work on putting, you know, some of this. That's been on the radar. Getting a student commissioner on the planning commission has been a big goal for us for a long time. So whether it's us or a next board, I think that's we're at that time that I think we have enough going on. We need to do a full day workshop and get that on there. So
Usually we do that in June.
we do a goal setting. We've never done a full day. We've always done like an hour or two, and it's just not enough time. We need to just set a full day and do it if it has to be a weekend or whatever. But so anyway, let's obviously put a pin in that until we know more what's going on. But I thought all those comments were well taken.
We schedule a sooner than the.
Yeah. So let's talk about the schedule.
And
So
I will say, I said for 6, saying that I will be in Eugene on December.
okay. So right now our next meeting is the 20th.
Right.
And I think I personally would like to see like a work session and a council meeting on the 20th. I think there's too many moving parts until then.
Yeah.
But I appreciate it would be, I mean, I understand time is of the essence, but, and there's also to say, if they have to get their signatures in by the 18th, I don't even know if they'd be validated by the 20th. I don't know how fast.
Yeah, I don't know how long they have.
I don't know how fast the elections office, so I just don't know. So, but I think so I guess the first question is, do we want to move up the council meeting that's currently scheduled for the 20th?
Can we move up the time?
Move up the date. Do we want to change that date in any way? I don't think we can.
I would add what's in the hopper with
Okay.
this annexation thing.
Okay.
Finds us to that date. But, I mean, we could always have like another special session. I mean, it doesn't have to be a Wednesday, it could be a Tuesday or a Thursday or, Monday night or something to that effect, like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Before tonight, I was just going to acknowledge that typically, when we don't have a lot going on, we cancel the December meeting because it's so close to the holidays. The 20th is very, that's a difficult date, seeing the proximity to Christmas. However, or other holidays if you observe them. However, I just don't think we can afford to not have a meeting. And so I think what we might do is, or my proposal would be to add a work session to the beginning, do a work session from 5 to 6, and then have a shorter council meeting that's streamlined. And I would probably recommend that we submit any kind of written update, council updates or reports in writing ahead of time, and just take that off the agenda. Or somehow, I think we should pare down the agenda to really just the items that need to be discussed, and we can push the staff reports and council reports to the next one.
And the work session will...
I'm not all sure yet what we're going to discuss at the work session. Obviously, we have to notice it when we notice it out there, but I think we reserve the work session to have kind of more planning discussions, answers, questions, be able to have kind of more thorough discussions about concerns, and then we can bring, they're open to the public, but we can then bring those issues to the council if we need to.
And then just...
Right, no decisions are made in work sessions. We don't vote on anything. It's really it's an opportunity for us to have just more thorough discussions, sitting around a table and looking at each other rather than in this awkward line.
Yeah. So are you saying that's going to be at 5 o'clock on the 20th?
That's what I propose, if we can do it. I'd like to do a 5 to 6 and then a short meeting. So, my hope is we would be out of here in council meeting in half an hour, 45 minutes, maybe an hour. What, no?
No, there's other stuff on the agenda, right?
What's our agenda for, we have the annexation.
310 acres of annexation.
Yeah, but that doesn't, sure. But that doesn't necessarily mean, there'll be a presentation and a discussion. Oh, is that the public hearing as well?
Oh, on the 20th?
On the 20th?
So we can't do a work session today. Yeah. What about November 29th? 2 weeks.
So that would give Mike enough time to get contact with people, answers, and...
And I think it could be a session, and that was scheduled.
But that's in the morning.
It doesn't have to be a Wednesday, or any opportunity.
What about December 13th?
I'm meeting with Majority Leader Lieber that morning, but that evening I could do it. Okay.
13?
Yeah, 13.
5 o'clock?
Work session on, can you do that?
Yeah.
Or can we look...
I could do it 4. I can arrange my schedule a little bit.
That would be easier for staff.
You want to do 4 o'clock rather than 5? I could do that on the 13th.
Okay.
Can everyone else do 4 o'clock on the 13th?
Yep.
All right, so we'll hold a work session on the 13th. And so then everyone get, let's say, can you try to get questions to Mike by the end of the week? Is that fair? Maybe by Monday next week? Mike, how much? I want to give you guys enough time to get information to come back to us with,
I have ideally I would have at least a week to chase down answers. So if you can get it to me 2 weeks in advance, then I can have answers put together in the packet so that all you have to answers in the work.
Good. Just don't, we have a holiday here, so I want to give you ample time too with the holiday. So, all right. So let's try to put together your answer or your questions. Excuse me. Try to put your questions together by the end of this week. Maybe by Monday if you need the weekend, right? Obviously, there's no you're not going to get a grade, but just be respectful of, right, the staff time. And then what we'll do, Mike, is, maybe just make sure that we produce in the packet the questions that the council puts forward to you so that, right, that people know we're not trying to. Do you want to? Send them directly to Mike, I don't need them, yeah. All right, anything else before we adjourn? Right. We'll stay and listen to you, but, not on the record, how about that? All right, so you move to adjourn? And a second, all those in favor say aye?
Aye.